this right now because the internet went out at my house. So the silver lining of that is that you get to meet my fish, but they've already gone to bed. They're in the dark. So you'll have to actually come here in person if you want to see them up close. I want to say I really appreciate you all coming here tonight. I know there are a lot of these virtual open houses, and a lot of them are even going on tonight as we speak. And so it really means a lot to me for you to join us here at the University of Michigan one. And, you know, I was trying to figure out like what would actually be useful for you if like I was in your shoes, what would I want to hear at these? Because our website is actually pretty good in terms of giving you a lot of the nuts and bolts about the curriculum and what goes on here. And I think the things that you can't really get probably from the website are really getting to know the people, getting to know us. And so I wanted to give you some faces and like just get to hear us talk so we can give you a little bit more of that, try to highlight some of the unique and interesting features of our program, tell you a little bit about life outside of work in Ann Arbor. And then I think a couple of FAQs in particular, people who come to these things often want to know, what are we looking for in a candidate? And so I want to touch on that a little bit too. And we have an amazing group of panelists here tonight, and I'm going to try to get through my part quickly and shut up so that you can meet all of them as well. So I want to first start by introducing myself a little bit. So again, I am Zach London. I really like my first name. I like being called by my first name. So you can call me Dr. London if you want, but I really would prefer if you called me by Zach. And so if you're going to ask any questions later today, like in the Q&A, for instance, try it out. Just if it's a question for me, be like, Zach, comma, you know, what is up with that weird pink neuron on your wall? And that would be a great way to sort of break the ice if you're trying to get used to getting over how awkward that feels the first time you do it. I have been here since 2002. I've been the program director since 2007, where if you do the math, that means I started program directing like a year out of residency, which they would never let anybody do anymore. I've seen Oppenheimer, but not Barbie. My family is all seeing Barbie tonight without me for the second time, but I do intend to in the near future. I'm married. I have 2 teenage kids. I'm taking my oldest to college next week, and I'm freaking out about that. I have a 3-year-old puppy who you would have met if I was home instead of here. My main hobbies are songwriting. I'm a mediocre musician, but very prolific. I help my wife run a local professional theater company. I like to play ultimate frisbee, but I'm currently on injured reserve. Separated my shoulder last week. And I love playing and designing board games, and I never really outgrew my love for building blanket forts in my house. So that's me. All the other panelists here tonight, I think, have a lot of unique things and cool things about them. We have people who have families and artists and other things. So maybe when we get around to them, they can introduce themselves as well and tell you some cool stuff about them. Our faculty here is huge and diverse, and we have every major subspecialty covered. And I think if you know you're interested in a certain field, obviously you're going to be looking for a program that has that as a strength. And if it's something common, you're going to have a lot of choices. I would say one of the great things about Michigan is that we really have strengths in so many different fields, including both common and uncommon things. And if you want to get exposure to stuff like neuro-ophthalmology and sleep medicine and neurogenetics and sports neurology, like that's all stuff that you can get here that you might not get at a lot of other programs. And while I think that's really important, probably what I'm most proud of about our faculty is really this culture of education that we have here. We have so many faculty that are really truly clinician educators, not just in name, but people who actually like have education as their academic niche. And they really compete to work with you on the wards and in clinic and to mentor you and teach you. And having people fighting over you is really a great thing when you're a resident. And of course, it's great for the program director too. Our residents, I will say, actually, wait, Kellen and Alyssa, can you just turn around for a second or just plug your ears? I don't want to brag like in front of them, their heads will get too big. Our residents right now are amazing. We've been doing this for a long time, and I feel like our recruitment has been getting better and better. And so like our current group of residents is the most engaged and has the best camaraderie. And I can't overemphasize how important that is to you in your life, like the people that you're working with every day, when they are just bright and strong and resilient and diverse, caring and fun and all those amazing things, your life is going to be 100 times better. And that's absolutely what we've got right now. You can unplug your ears now. I really do hope you get a chance to see that with your own eyes. And that's why I want to make sure to give them more time to talk than me. Just a couple basic nuts and bolts things. We are a categorical program, at least in so much as if you come here, you have a guaranteed internship with our internal medicine department here. We're recruiting 9 a year. We have been doing that now for 3 years. You will be our 4th year since we increased from 7. So our current chiefs who are on with us tonight are our last class of 7. You will be our first class as interns, where our entire program has 9 a year. And that's afforded us a lot of opportunities to expand a number of programs. And in fact, as soon as this meeting ends, we're meeting to talk about other ways that we can make use of having those extra residents next year. I want to emphasize really the rest of the program. I mean, internship, by the way, I was saying it has to be here. And part of that is because I think part of our curriculum takes place during that year. And Kara, Dr. Wyant is going to talk a little bit about what that means. The rest of the curriculum, I'm not really going to get into too much now because I feel like the website does a pretty good job talking about that. I just want to emphasize that I feel like our foremost goal is to really help you feel comfortable and prepared for what comes after residency, right? And that may be going into academics, it may be going into practice, it may be doing a fellowship, it may be not. And you really have to explore all of these different things during residency to decide what you want to do. And if you spend your entire PGY 1 and 2 years doing nothing but inpatient, sometimes that's hard to know if you want to do something else. And so I think a big part of our curriculum is about trying to expose people to a lot of different clinical opportunities early and often, so that when you have to make decisions about things like fellowships, which I still think they're making you guys make decisions too early during residency, at least you'll be better prepared to do that. Brian, Dr. Callahan's going to talk about research opportunities here. I just want to say briefly, if you're interested in research, clinical basic translational health services, this is just a phenomenal place to train. If you're interested in care of the underserved or social justice, we have opportunities there. If you want to build a career in hospital administration, quality improvement, medical education, we have dedicated programs to all of those things. And I think the last thing I wanted to touch on was the sort of what are we looking for, right? Because people ask us that sometimes. And I think, so we have a recruitment committee that's diverse. It includes residents. Everybody's gone through unconscious bias training, and we're really trying to approach our application review as holistically as possible. This will be our third or fourth year now where we've blinded ourselves completely to step scores when making interview decisions. We did that long before they took away the step 1 scores with both 1 and 2, and I think that's worked out really well for us. We're going to keep doing that. When I look back at the residents who have been most successful, the ones who have really shined during and after training, I guess I feel like enthusiasm about neurology is probably the characteristic that I value the most. And I'm not just talking about people who are, like extroverted and you rah go neuro, but people who actually are just really engaged with the material, who are energized by patient care rather than drained by it, who can't wait to get together at conferences and geek out about cases with their colleagues. Because I feel like if that describes you, you're going to be a great resident. You're going to be a great neurologist. And that's who we're looking for. I think experiences in teaching and leadership often correlate with that. So those are things that we often look for. But honestly, I mostly just want to know you as a person and what excites you about neurology so I can really help nurture that enthusiasm. I think that's what we're all about. The last thing I want to just mention, because people ask this a lot at these virtual open houses, like, are there categories of people that we automatically include or exclude? And the answer is no. Do we recruit IMG residents? Yes, we do. If you look through our current residents, we have internationally trained residents here. And I will say that is actually something that we are being intentional about now. And I'm going to say mea culpa. When I was a program director earlier on, it was not something I sought out as much, and now it really is, because I feel like we're looking for diversity in our program, and people who come from different cultural backgrounds, that includes people who come from different countries, really add to that diversity. And I do think that's something that's important. So we're being intentional about looking closer at IMG applications. And yes, we do recruit DOs if people have that question. We don't currently have any DOs in our program, but it's not my fault. I mean, that's not fair to say. It is my fault. Of course it's my fault, but it's not my fault for not interviewing and ranking them high enough to match here. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So yes, if you are a DO, we apply the same criteria that we do to allopathic students. That's all I wanted to say in this brief time. I know a lot of you came in late, but that's okay because you're about to get the better parts. As we go through this, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A, and we're going to save a bunch of time at the end to kind of go through all of those. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the chair of our department, Dr. Dawn Kleindorfer, and she can tell you a little bit about herself and maybe her vision for our department. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you, Zach. And what a tough act to follow. And Zach is always so funny, and it's his enthusiasm for the program really shows through. I think you can get that just from that brief introduction. So I am just excited to be here. I love working with our residents. It's one of the things that helps center me. As the chair, we do a lot of different things besides straight up clinical care. But when I work with our residents and I'm seeing patients on the hospital service, it reminds me of why I did what I did and how I got to be where I am, which is doctor first. I graduated from this residency program 20 some odd years ago. And I remember being in your shoes and interviewing, and it's really hard to decide like what is it that I need, or where is it that I want to go? There are lots of really great programs out there. Many of those programs will give you a broad range of disciplines. Many of them will teach you well. So it really comes down to those extra things. What extra things do you need? And for me, one of the extra things were the people that were there. I showed up for internship with a baby on my hip, and I needed a way to connect with my colleagues and be in an environment that I wanted to raise my family. And I just connected so tightly with my colleagues during residency. We all helped each other. I learned a tremendous amount from my fellow residents. And I remember, some of you heard this joke before, but as I was leaving to go do fellowship in stroke, because there weren't very many fellowships in stroke when I graduated, if you can imagine that, it was a new thing. But when I left, I was joking around with people and said, maybe I'll come back as chair someday. Haha, isn't that funny, And it was just hysterical because I never thought it was possible. And I think the motto is anything is possible. And this place prepares you for whatever it is that you want to do. And I am such a believer of the faculty and the residents and the trainees that are here in this institution. So I am going to be quiet because what you really need to hear is the people that are living the residency every day, and then our two wonderful associate program directors, Kara and Brian, who can talk to you more about what it is that they do to support this program. And I'll be available for questions as well. So thanks, everyone. And I'll hand it over to someone. I don't know who.
You're going to hand it over to Dr. Kara Wyans.
Dr. Kara Wyans.
Clinical Curriculum Associate Program Director.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Thanks for that intro. So yeah, as Zach said, I'm the Associate Program Director that helps coordinate all the clinical curriculum. And tonight I'm going to focus a little bit on some of the more exciting and engaging ways that we bring you education across your 3 years with us. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have been here at U of M since 2016. I came here to do my fellowship in movement disorders and then stayed on as faculty after that. I've been working, doing clinical curriculum work with Zach for oh my goodness, 3 years now. And then I've been the APD for 2 years helping with this. Each year I do a little bit more and a little bit different. And we have a very innovative group of residents that helps guide us in what needs to change, what needs to improve. And so it's been an exciting course and excited to see where we go from here too. So a little bit about me though outside. So I also am married. I have 2 children. I have 2 boys. One is 9 and the other one's 13. The 13 is having his first football scrimmage. I know everybody cringe like, oh my gosh, but I think he's doing okay from what I can tell from all my husband's text messages that are blowing up at the moment. And we love camping. We have a travel trailer, so it's not really camping, it's more glamping, but that's the thing we love to do here in Michigan. The lakes are beautiful. There's amazing places to go. I love going up into the top part of the bottom and so around like the lakes and wine tasting. And that's kind of our big thing, that and buying fudge. All right, so now let me get back to the extracurricular activities that we do here at Michigan for our residents. I'm going to share my screen here in just a second. Okay, so moving things. All right, so first, the first thing that I'm really excited about is to tell you that even though you have to struggle for many of you through that first year of intern year, and you start to get down and thinking, oh my gosh, another liver patient, am I ever going to make this through? I want to encourage you that we have one of the only programs where you only have to do 11 months of that. We actually allow our residents to graduate medicine a month early so that they can come join us in neurology for our junior boot camp. So our junior boot camp is this really amazing, fun month where it's filled with a lot of interactive lectures, games, workshops, different ways to make sure that we all kind of refresh all of our neuroanatomy, our localization, physical exam skills, and get ready for the nuts and bolts of being on service in July. So as part of this boot camp, we also do some interactive teaching activities or workshops. Each of the residents, we challenge them to get outside of their comfort zone and teach in new ways. So teaching through games, making a game, or using props or no technology. What you see here in this crazy video on the right side is one of our residents' interpretation of how the basal ganglia transports and gets us to move. And so this is a clever way that they use to teach the structure of the basal ganglia and that crazy motor circuit loop. One of the other really great ways that our residents will educate each other is they will all work together to put together a few YouTube videos. So at the end of the month, we all get together and we all watch their YouTube videos as we welcome in our next class of residents, which you can see here up on the top right. And this is a fun time. Our YouTube channel is great. If you haven't checked it out, I would really encourage you to check it out and enjoy some laughs as you see and learn from our neurology residents. So this is also pictures that are all taken from our boot camp. So we make sure that within boot camp, we know that a lot of times the residents are coming off some really long hours in internal medicine. And so we try to make sure we incorporate rest and relaxation, plenty of fun time out with the other residents to get to know everybody and really support that camaraderie. All right, so in PGY3 year, so that's PGY1 going into 2, in PGY3 year at the beginning, we started this leadership retreat, recognizing how important it was to invest into our new senior residents. And so this leadership has been going on for 2 years, and it expanded this year to 3 days. This is all protected time where we take the residents out, we work with them on communication styles, personality skills, conflict management, how to lead inclusive teams, and really give them the tools and help them think through ways that they want to lead and encourage them and give them the support to be able to do that as they start their senior year. As Zach said, we are really big about education and building educators, and we have a ton of faculty that are involved in that as well. So we also try to work to train our residents at each stage how to be better educators. And within this section, we also do workshops where we teach them to learn different bedside teaching skills and be able to apply those, which you see down here in this bottom picture in the middle, where our residents are teaching each other and utilizing those skills. All right, so then in 4th year, so that last year, we have our flight school. Flight school is the time, it's usually situated towards the end of 4th year. because most of our residents are doing fellowships. So we really focus more on kind of that next year after fellowship and what are some of the career paths that they could choose after they finish their fellowship. What does the contract negotiations look like as they're starting to talk about jobs in the next few months? What are things to think about investing for your future, and what are the pitfalls or maintenance of certification and promotions and all this other stuff, and prepare them. Each year, this curriculum has changed just a little bit to really focus on what the seniors need. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is a big part of what we do throughout the curriculum. Is kind of spread in little ways. I wanted to highlight just one special event that we do that actually Kellen, one of our chief residents, helped us to revamp last year. This is our Social Determinants of Health Day. And this occurs during boot camp for our juniors, but also involves the graduating seniors. And so the juniors, they have a time where we do some teaching on what are social determinants of health, just to kind of level set. How do you evaluate for those? How do you gather that information when you're in the clinic? And then we break them up into little groups working with seniors, and they have to go through these cases that are neurology cases where we're prescribing a drug for a migraine, or this patient was admitted to me for a stroke, and now I'm saying they have to get XYZ plus therapy plus this, that, and the other. How do they do that? And then help them to recognize the barriers that might be there when we start to recommend things for our patients, and help them to start problem solving how to overcome these barriers for our patients. Then at the end of the day, we have this great kind of breakdown session where we have our social workers come in, they go through these cases, they talk, they give us tons of resources to help the residents really feel empowered to be able to make a difference for their patients, and then just to start building friendships among those other professionals that we'll be working with once they get onto the field. So this is a really great thing, something that we've kind of changed and grown each year because we want to continue to encourage our residents to think about the system as a whole, about the areas that are deficient, and try to start making changes and getting them started in that thinking process early, so that as we go through residency and they get into QI projects and everything else, we're starting to make a difference and improve quality care for our patients. All right, well, that wraps it up for me. So I'm going to throw it over to the other APD, Brian.
Thanks, Kara. Yep, Brian Callahan here. Nice to meet everybody. I'm not nearly as fun as Kara or Zach because I'm the research guy. That's never the fun person. But you know, things about me that are different is my dad's one of 18 kids, and my mom's one of 9. So if you do come to Michigan, you should be nice to me because pretty much all my 90 cousins live in Michigan. And so, you know, if you're around anywhere in this area, you're probably going to run into someone related to me. I also love board games like Zach. My wife and I think we own all the different pandemic versions. So we frequently play those, and just got back from a wonderful sabbatical in Oxford, which I highly recommend, you know, being in Oxford for any time. It's very pretty. My whole family enjoyed it. My 2 girls, my wife, and then we even made it up to the Highlands in Scotland, which is probably one of the prettiest places I've ever been. So, you know, just some travel advice for you. All right, so as far as the research goes, let's see if I can share screens. Is it showing my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm a little slow. So, you know, I just, you know, want to go through a couple things, which is everybody does research, all the residents, but we don't take a, you know, it's more of an opportunity than something that's onerous. You know, if you want to do something small, that's fine. If you want to do something really big, that's great. And what's always remarkable to me is just the quality of research that comes out, you know, because residents don't have a ton of time for research. But with the mentors we have and the quality of residents we have, Neuroscience Day is always super fun. And so we kind of do the whole gamut of research. Some people do basic science. Most of them are clinical, though, all the way from, you know, cohort studies and quality improvement studies, and then my favorite, health services, which is very appropriate for resident level projects. One of our big strengths is Roger Albin. We have someone that runs our R25 program, which I just learned got refunded because it's so excellent, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And that's just all because Roger puts so much time and energy into it. He really makes what could be a hard process super easy. He makes it very structured and walks people through it in ways that leads to success both in the short and long term. So, if I had to say a strength, the R25 is a big strength, and it's a strength because of Roger. It does come down to the people, and the R25 is great if for those that are super research oriented, because it gives you 6 months of time to focus on research. But even if you don't do the R25, you can cobble together research time as well, and there's plenty of time to do very cool projects. So I encourage you, if you're interested in research, to learn more about some of the offerings we have, like our R25 program. Again, I don't want to go through all the details because Roger really does this for you, but he's got it down to a science where, we kind of break it into very easy chunks so that it's not overwhelming experience. You pick your mentors, you pick your project, you get your aims, but you do it kind of all in a very, time dependent way so that it's not overwhelming. And what shows that we're successful, it's really the people. So we currently have 3 R25 trainees, and you can see them here. One of my R25 trainees just moved on to her K, which shows our success. And we've had a number of people transition from R25 to Ks to faculty, and we're getting multiple applications per year. So it's just growing and growing, and it's a wonderful program for those that view research as a big part of their future. I think another cool thing about what we have is our faculty. We have 15 MD PhDs, 19 with masters, so we're really balanced between basic science, translational stuff, and clinical stuff. So we're not heavily skewed in one direction or the other. We even have 14 PhDs, which is something that's really grown in the last several years, which gives us a whole nother cadre of people that can help out. And then if you just, this is all within neurology. If you expand beyond neurology, we have even more within a very robust Michigan Neurologic Institute, amongst others. One nice thing about Michigan is you never have to worry about us being a place that has tons of research and tons of awards. So we had 130 total awards, including 42 active clinical trials. So we're a very robust department. And that's always been the case in the 15 years that I've been here, which is nice. You never have to worry about putting a grant. If it says University of Michigan on it, that already gives you a leg up on a lot of people, which is really nice. And then I just pulled this off. I didn't have a neurology specific one, but the University of Michigan is 7th in NIH funding amongst universities. And so, always kind of in that, 7 to 10 range. And so, again, NIH gives us lots of funding on the order of, it says $644 million. So lots of money comes into Michigan because we have a lot of good faculty and trainees. We have a pilot program, which is kind of cool, which can get people started on projects. That's been relatively new and successful. And we have our first 2 awardees. I don't think we've had another set quite yet. So this is going to be, I think, a very good program to launch people in their research. And then we have all sorts of things that support researchers and as they learn how to do grant writing and other initiatives to help in no matter what kind of research you do. So lots of opportunities here at Michigan. But this is the slide I really wanted to show people, which is, I do think it comes down to the people. I think that's what Dawn said. And I think she's right on that. And, I only highlighted 10 people here. I mean, we have, numerous faculty, but, some of the superstars that we have, people like Sammy Barmada on the far upper left, and Eva Feldman, Peter Todd. These are incredible basic scientists that work in offices near me, very intimately familiar with their work over many years, and not only are amazing basic scientists, but they're even better people. They're also amazing clinicians too, which is not always the case of our most amazing basic science researchers, but they are definitely in that category as well. You have Melissa, who's just went from the R25 to the K23. She's one of my trainees, and but she's pioneered, doing stuff not only in Flint, Michigan, where we have underserved populations, but also in Zambia. So she does international stuff. So we have a whole area there that's starting up. Obviously, Dawn is in the top right. Our chair, sets the example for her incredible research that she's brought over from Cincinnati and has continued to thrive here. You have Devin Brown in the bottom left, who I think still has the largest award at the University of Michigan with an incredible clinical trial. So we're talking now, we went from basic science to global. Dawn does, another more clinical research. Devin is doing large clinical trials across many centers. Back to Hank Paulson, who's another basic science, big basic scientist who, has actually started the careers of many people, including Peter and Sammy, but also other people that are prominent faculty members at other institutions. I can't actually move my, there it goes. Oh, Joanna Mattis is next on the list. She is recently started and has hit the ground running, doing amazing basic science within epilepsy. And you got Melanie Springer. She's in the stroke division. We have one of the largest and best stroke groups with Dawn, Devin, and Melanie, just to name a few. And she is also looking at some underserved populations as well. And then, Zach might be surprised to find himself on this list, but I think it's important to, highlight just how good of a researcher he is. He's not just an educator and a program director, but he actually is an incredible researcher, and we've done a lot of projects together. And so we have, education research and other projects, clinical projects, and it highlights the ability to collaborate with other faculty here. So that's why I wanted to specifically point that out. But I could go through many other people, but I think what you'd find is all these are not only super accomplished people, but very easy to work with. They all want to work with people. It's not hard to, get them to have meetings or sign up or be involved. We don't have that issue within our department really at all. So I think that sets us apart. There are a lot of good research places. I think we're one of the elite ones that is particularly good at helping people younger in their career. And that pertains to trainees and people as they transition into early professors. And I started off here as a fellow and then an early assistant professor. And I can tell you from experience that I wouldn't want to be anywhere else when starting an academic career. So with that, I will turn it over. I think our amazing chief residents are next. Is that right, Kellen and Alyssa? Are they on the clock?
Brian, thank you. That was awesome.
Thanks,
yeah,
guys.
These are the real stars of the show, obviously. I mean, people you really came to see are the residents, and Kellen and Alyssa are current chief residents, which is we usually pick 2 chiefs a year, and they were both excited and available to join you guys tonight and hopefully tell you everything else you need to know about the program.
Yes. All right. I am going to share my screen. All right, there we go. So welcome. We were so excited to welcome you that we made 2 welcome slides, maybe even 3, just the whole bunch of us. And also we felt like it was important to highlight Zach. We didn't know if he was going to highlight himself enough. And so here is Zach, even though he is unrecognizable in 50% of these photos. But here is us. So my name's Alyssa. I'm one of the PGY4s, current chief resident. I hail from rural nowhere, Ohio, and ended up here with these wonderful people. And we are, as pictured here, somehow not only co-chieftesses, but best friends throughout our 4 years here. And so that has been, we're very thankful for that. And so here's our contact info as well, if you guys want to shoot us an email after.
I'm Kellen. Excuse me. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. Alyssa and I actually became best friends on the interview trail, and the day that we found out that we matched here with another one of our good friends that we met while interviewing, the 3 of us were immediately on the phone and planning all of our adventures. I am married. My husband's an anesthesia resident, so we couples matched here. I have 2 cats, a giant dog, and a 10-month-old. Anything is possible at the University of Michigan.
Oh, I didn't mention anything else about me. I have a big fluffy cat who's like super mad that she's not on the Zoom call right now. So she may make an appearance here later. So I think, the biggest thing and the biggest aim of the open house is kind of letting you guys, albeit virtually, get a better look into our program and kind of who we are, what we care about the most. And so the reasons, we've listed 10 neatly here, but there are more than that. The reasons why we personally chose Michigan, or, now that we're here, we're like, these really make this program special. I think for me, the biggest thing is a combination of 1 and 2, kind of having an environment of people that you like to work with every day, makes the long hours feel much better, and kind of just really, I don't know, being surrounded by genuinely good and inspiring people all the time. It makes me want to be better when I'm kind of surrounded by all of these people doing all these really big and exciting things. It's kind of overwhelming sometimes, but I think helps me to be a better neurologist. And then another reason is, I think, why I like neurology in general is that in neurology, sometimes the zebra is the answer. And so we get to see some of those here. And so the diversity, both at the University Hospital, also at the VA, my personal favorite, is kind of another thing that keeps us energized. And just kind of this support, not only from co-residents, but from faculty, from leadership, just feeling like everyone is really approachable and cares what the residents think and implement these changes in real time. Like, I really do feel like even before we were chiefs, we really had a voice in terms of things that matter to us as residents.
I totally agree. One of the big reasons I came, I tell the story to everybody, is I came in with my like 10-year plan for my academic promotion, and this is how I was going to do XYZ and get my K-23 and all those things. And I met with Dr. Paulson, who Brian talked about, and he said, "But what was your most recent vacation?" And so it was just like really nice to be so well grounded in all of the important elements of both my training as an excellent clinician, both in general neurology, early exposure to a bunch of different subspecialties, that you don't know what you don't know. And so if you've never seen it or you've never tried it, you don't know what kinds of things you may like or not like. The neuro boot camp made me feel really confident transitioning from medicine into neurology, that I was ready to not know everything, but at least be able to take a good crack at it, and that I had the basic tools and a basic foundation. I think something that I didn't appreciate quite as much when I was interviewing for residency, but certainly now that we're looking towards graduation and beyond, is the Michigan name and the alumni network and all of the people here who, say, well, what do you want to do? And when they ask that, it's because they can help you do whatever you want to do, whether it be here, closer to family, or anything at all. The world's really your oyster after training at the University of Michigan. As Brian mentioned, the research opportunities go from health services to our co-resident Richard has like 3,000 Drosophila or something he likes. To big projects, small projects, things in between, just to get your feet wet, see if you like it, and then if it is something that you really like, it's fairly easy to fit significant portions of time. We have a few of our co-residents who currently have like months at a time where they're working on basic science projects, and again, that education is really the foundation for all of the wonderful things that we do here. First and foremost is our training in neurology, and we graduate really excellent neurologists. And so it's something that, you're really proud to be part of.
All right.
Okay. So you've heard of the pitch. Now this is like probably what you really care about and our passion. So food in Ann Arbor and the surrounding areas is fabulous. Whatever you can think of, we have it. It is opening more and more by the minute. You can get into all of these places and you can afford all of these places. I'll do sort of a couple of shout outs to Frida Batidos, the Dixboro Project, and Beer Camp, which is right next to where I live. So I'm there just about every weekend. But the food in Ann Arbor is really fabulous for being a relatively small town. It has more of a big city food vibe.
Right. And the perfect complement to food is always drink. We realized after we put this slide together that perhaps we should highlight other beverages, i.e. coffee, non-alcoholic choices. But here's a few of our favorites. I'll especially highlight York, which is where we are in the top right corner, and where Kellen and I do our best, chief brainstorming over Prosecco. So it felt like an honorable mention there. I'll just briefly touch on the housing scene in Ann Arbor because it's so variable and there's whatever you're looking for, you can find. There's a lot of options. As aforementioned, I just picked up and moved here with my cat and was very overwhelmed with all of the choices. And so I just up and bought a house down here in Pittsfield Township. And so that was a very, achievable, attainable thing as just a person on my own buying a house. And able to pay the mortgage, so that's good. But there's also Kellen rents a really nice townhouse, and so there are just a lot of different options depending on what you're looking for. It's not really relevant to me, but I'm in an excellent school district, I'm told. And so that's another draw, I suppose, is that all of these places you can't really go wrong. And a quick shout out to, I guess you can call it a suburb of Ann Arbor, is Ypsilanti, which I really love, and has kind of, I don't know, more of a smaller suburbia feel, I guess. And so some folks, like myself included, live closer out there.
For reference, so sorry, can you go back?
Yeah, sorry.
So, the inner circle is maybe a 5-minute walk to the hospital. The outer circle, the middle circle, which is sort of about where I live, it takes me 10-15 minutes to drive. That's sort of the mantra of Ann Arbor, is like it or not, and no matter how close or how far away, it's going to take you 15 minutes. So I live 4 miles and it takes me 15 minutes. Alyssa probably lives 7 miles and it takes her 15 minutes, even though she's out at the outer rim of that circle. So even if you don't necessarily live right within walking distance of the hospital, it's very, very easy to get around town.
Most importantly, Kellen and I live very close together in this circle. And so that has been convenient. If you can plan to live very close to your best friend, would recommend. And so I don't know if anyone, from the Midwest, we really feel very passionately about our 4 seasons and how there are 4 seasons, kind of. And so we really wanted to highlight them. I am most passionate about more the fall and winter months, as highlighted here with some pumpkin activities and snow-related activities. We probably should have found more pictures about how beautiful it is in the fall and winter, but those are available on the Google if you would like to take a gander. Ann Arbor really is the prettiest place that I've ever lived in the fall, most certainly. It's beautiful up here.
I'm from Virginia, where seasons are actually real. There are sort of the sunnier months and then the less sunnier months in Ann Arbor. But people told me you moved to Ann Arbor for the summers, and they were absolutely right. It's bright from 5 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. The weather is beautiful. It's not humid. And so there's a lot I will tell you about to do in Ann Arbor, but some of these other pictures, it's really easy to get to beaches, lakes, mountains, things like that. My husband is Swedish, and so every year we have a midsummer party. This year with a young child, we didn't, so we're having a late summer party, but it will still count. But we have all of the residents, the anesthesia residents, the neurosurgery residents, the medicine residents. We all get together and celebrate the nice, long, beautiful Michigan summers. Okay.
I'm going to click through these as you talk about them because there's a lot of pictures.
So there's a lot of things to do in Ann Arbor. I think part of having such an excellent undergraduate campus is that it brings a really interesting group of people together who won't settle for boredom. So sports games are, of course, big, including gymnastics, field hockey, basketball, the football games being really a lifetime. Even if you don't like football, you should go to a football game. But there are wonderful farmers markets both here and out in the suburbs. If there's an outdoor activity that you like to do, you can 100% do it here. like I mentioned, the Great Lakes are all around. And so if you're more of like a boating kind of person, you can do that. The Detroit Symphony is very easy to get to. I've personally went down, it's a 40-minute drive to the Symphony. So we go down, have dinner, go to the Symphony, come home. It's great. There are fabulous plays, comedy clubs here. And then of course we're only maybe like 30 minutes to an hour to Detroit, to different parts, wherever you're going. And so if you like, Alyssa went to the Taylor Swift concert, if you want something bigger, but there's also really, Detroit's sort of a fabulous city. And so if there's like a bigger event that you want to go to, professional sports, things like that, you can do it in Detroit. And it's really, really easy to get to. And then Canada is like weirdly close, which I didn't realize because I'm not from here. So there's actually a lot of half marathons around town. That are where you can half marathons or whole marathons, and you run across the border to Canada and then come back. So some of our residents and some of the faculty do, I don't know what it's called, the Canada Marathon, I guess, maybe. Is this next? I think there was a program overview slide.
There is. I'm froze up here. There we go. So here's last year's residents versus faculty pickleball tournament that felt important to highlight. As a brief overview, I think a lot of these things have already been touched on. We are the last class of 7 adult neurology residents. After us, all the classes are 9, which is nice, especially while building the schedule. And they've been matching 2 to 4 pediatric neurology residents per year as well. And they do their 3rd year, like all adult neurology. And so we really work closely with the pediatric neurology residents and faculty. And so they're kind of ingratiated into our program. We're mostly at the university hospital, but we also rotate pretty frequently at the Ann Arbor VA, which is an excellent VA, and the Mott Children's Hospital, and kind of various other outpatient clinic locations as well, like the Burlington Pain Clinic is there, and etc. Each of our rotations currently is in 2-week blocks. And so as I always say, if it's something that you don't particularly care for, you can do anything for 2 weeks. And so I really like it. I feel like it makes things feel like they go even quicker than they already feel like. And then we have it set up so that half of the residents, per their preference, half the residents have 5 days off surrounding Christmas, and half of the residents have 5 days off surrounding New Year's. And this year we were able to kind of make it work for everyone getting their first choice of holiday block off, which is also a nice little added bonus, because that's just in addition to like regular vacations, of which there are 2-week blocks.
So conferences, as we talked about, lectures are education's a big part of the program. So we have, your basic lecture where somebody stands and talks to you about things. But we also sort of, some of the other things that I wanted to highlight is our program evaluation committee meetings and our resident business meetings. So the program evaluation committee is a group of faculty who we work intimately with and all of the residents. And we meet and we talk about what is going well in the residency, what are things that we want to change, what are some areas of improvement, what is our goal as a residency. And so it's a chance to meet with Zach and our residency leadership to talk about those. And the resident business meeting is without Zach there. And so Alyssa and I run that, and it's a little bit more of like, what's going on, touching base with everybody, seeing if there's, anything that we can be doing on a small level or on a bigger level to bring up at the program committee. So there's just a lot of areas for feedback and where we check in with everybody and make sure things are going well. Wednesdays are sort of our conference days. And I'll highlight patient conference, which is fortunately now moving more and more back in person. I vividly remember Brian Callahan gave a patient conference on a copper neuropathy or copper deficiency neuropathy when I interviewed here, and the patient came in person, and I was just so impressed by all of the residents, you know, giving their differentials. And then Brian the attending presenting takes you through the exam. And so, you know, you get to see a real neuromuscular attending doing, you know, a neuromuscular exam and all of the intricacies and the nuances of that. That was just really, really cool. And so a lot of these are more of the zebras, and the patients are just wonderful. And then we do a lot of quality assurance and then wellness conferences that Alyssa really spearheaded last year, which is usually we do like cookie decorations, coloring, clay toys, we make magnets, but just an hour to get the residents together during the workday to just sort of blow off a little bit of steam and again, check in and make sure everyone's doing well. The new journal club format is really fun. It used to be just sort of somebody would choose a random journal or a random article and we would talk about it, and it would have like varying quality or relevance to practice. But some of the faculty have sort of rehauled it. And so now we're sort of really focusing on a lot of the seminal trials in neurology and a lot of the sort of new and emerging data so that we're really focusing with Journal Club being how do you read and interpret data and how does this change or not change your management, as well as like, oh, these are the things that everybody tells you to do. Why do we do them? Here's the trial that proved it. And then localization rounds is my absolute favorite. It's a case it's Dr. Gelb and Dr. London, and the residents bring the cases and we sort of tease our way through it, really pushing everybody to try and say, well, like, could it localize there? Could it localize so that your localization is broad? And then you use really your exam skills in particular to really localize and make sure that, you know, at the end of the day, we're neurologists and the localization is sort of like the most beautiful part of what we do. And so remembering like, you know, how do we localize these lesions and what do the different neuroanatomy correlate? And then that we have sort of special series either. So the June is during boot camp where we do sort of a refresher on neurologic emergencies. So that's really nice as a PGY2 to feel like, you know, you have a little bit of practice for what to do. And it's always a good refresher as a senior resident. And then we do a dedicated right review every year, which is really, really nice. And it sort of is a good place to consolidate all of the weird pediatric things that I never really remember. But it's a really great structured environment to get ready for the right. That's Praveen walking.
I think we kind of touch on a lot of these things elsewhere, and so we can kind of just briefly talk about a couple of them. I personally participated in the Community of Medical Educators and Training Project, or COMET, which is a super awesome opportunity for folks that are interested in medical education, like I am, kind of putting together like a formal curriculum of how you can be better educators while also kind of maintaining the clinician side of it. Our house officers are part of like a house officer union, the HOA, which is really great. And then
I guess I'll just highlight the parental leave too.
Yeah.
So we, within our program, have a policy that allows people to take up to 12 weeks. So the part of the HOA bargaining agreement is that you have 6 weeks, whether you're the birthing parent or the non-birthing parent. And then within our program, really because Zach prioritizes family and the well-being of his residents, sort of was able to make it so that you can extend that even further. And so I used that last year, and then it was really great because between myself and my husband, we ended up having, you know, a full 4 months off between the two of us before we both had to go back to work. And so that's certainly something unique, and a lot of kudos to Zach for being able to allow us that liberty, and that the HOA also sort of recognizes residents as parents, as people who need to help take care of their families. And so if you need to take a leave for another reason, or if you need to take a leave for your own personal illnesses, those are you're not punished for that. There are ways to negotiate that within your training. And so I guess, yeah, we can just like go mostly through the pictures.
Yeah. What happened? Okay. Here's our current intern class.
You've seen some of these pictures. So that's Dr. Gelb and the rest of the PGY ones at a lecture. Dr. Gelb is another one of our sort of teacher, mentor extraordinaires, and really the master of localization. And then the class is also there at our pickleball tournament for this year, which we didn't have the group of everybody, but everybody gets all dressed up and we play against the faculty. But even as a PGY1, you're very much part of the neurology program.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like every year we like find even more ways to kind of integrate the interns into the rest of the residents, which I feel like is really important. So one of the most important things about intern year is that you can still get to do neurology. So we can hide that, or we can highlight that 3 whole months, including the full month of boot camp. And then continuity clinic is something we can talk in more detail about later if people have questions, but you can still have your continuity clinic panel of patients throughout your intern year, which is not the case everywhere.
Yeah, it's really nice to not have to have a primary care clinic, but to actually get to see neurology patients, subspecialty neurology in your first year.
And here's the current PGY2 class. Silly. They are now experiencing and enjoying their first year of neurology. We have kind of like a sample schedule here, but a lot of variability, and so we just kind of wanted to highlight what the block schedule looked like. And then
the threes. So the threes are a great class. We love them. They're really silly. The bow ties were from one of their boot camp shenanigan adventures. But they are particularly close and particularly goofy and particularly athletic. So it's really great that we have all these sporting events because we always win. I think in January, where the residents are having a pickleball tournament against medicine, ophthalmology, emergency medicine, and peds, and we will without a doubt win.
Helen did reply all to the multi-department email thread. Neurology is in it to win it. So that's the spirit. Another sample block schedule. These kind of nitty-gritty things I feel like will come up more for interview day. And there's us, the most important part. No, I'm just kidding. But here is our class. This photo on the right was taken during boot camp during a walk in the Arboretum. And then this over here on the left was during our leadership retreat.
I think the cool thing about our class is there isn't anybody doing the same fellowship. So like I'm doing neuromuscular, Liz is doing neuro-onc, we have multiple sclerosis, neuro-ophthalmology, epilepsy. We have one of our co-residents going into general. One of our co-residents, Richard, Brian Callahan highlighted earlier, he's doing he's got the Drosophila. He's doing the R25, but he's going to do a movement disorder and maybe a little bit of cognitive. And so everybody has very different interests. And so it's really cool. And I'm very grateful because now in the future, I will have all of the subspecialties if I have a question to call my co-residents and ask them what to do.
And there's us. All you need to know about the PGY4 schedule is that it's better than the rest of them.
You do have more. The 4 schedule is the best place to sort of, if you want a larger chunk of research time, it's easier to set up longer periods of electives. So you get electives, you get outpatient exposure throughout all of the years. It's just a little bit easier in your PGY4 year to set up consecutive blocks if you're doing primarily basic science, where you really need the dedicated lab time. PGY babies. So we have a lot of folks with kids in our whole residency. So one of my co-residents has a 8-year-old, and now they have a young one who loves That's My Dog, Gulliver. A lot of our kids go to the same daycare, so we all bought matching outfits. Ben brought his daughter, one of our recent graduates who's still around as a fellow, brought his daughter for localization rounds one day. We brought for the boot camp, we used to go around the children's hospital for the pediatric neurology lecture and exam. But this year we all just brought our kids in and let the residents play with our kids and sort of practice the exam. And it was really silly and really fun. And we take our kids to dinner and to Resident Appreciation Day, which is a day in the spring when all of the faculty take over the entire services for us. So they do consults, they do wards, they do everything so that we all get a day off. Every single person gets a day off together. And the department pays for lunch, and we all gather and bring our families and have a really, really great day.
Here's PGY Pet. I really feel like the cat people needed represented, better representation here. So there's me and my cat Mo in the bottom left-hand corner. A lot of doodles, a lot of doodle action. Zach has a doodle. A lot of the residents have doodles. And then multiple pictures of Gulliver because he's never met a person that's not a friend. And there's his little bow tie. And we do, well, I don't bring Mo to events so much. That's her preference. But a lot of the other residents take their dogs to like some of the outdoor gatherings.
A lot of the places in town are really dog friendly, especially through COVID and even in the winter. So it's really nice. You can always have your dog around. We wanted to give a special shout out to the attendings. So this is Dr. Patty. He bought our whole consult team lunch from this wonderful Cuban restaurant in Ypsilanti. And we just took a break from a busy service. This is a bunch of our different faculties who sometimes we have wellness events, or we call them sort of like whiskey wellness, out on Wednesdays, where we all get together and the faculty join us, and there's no work talk. You cannot talk about work. So we just talk to one another, hang out. You don't have to drink if you're there, but it's a nice time to get to know everyone better. Dr. Gelb is an absolute legend, and really just one of the most wonderful people you'll ever meet. That's still Dr. Gelb teaching Mikhail how to do an exam, but the only tool we had around were scissors. Molly McDermott is another one of our wonderful faculty who is a Michigan lifer, but they decided to dress up on the stroke service one day. I don't know why, but they did it. And so they had a fun time. And then these are pictures from pickleball, where again, everybody had t-shirts and outfits, and that's Dr. Lieber, who's one of our pediatric neurology faculty. And if you met him in person, he's like the smartest person you'll ever meet in his life. And then he showed up with a lei on. And then this is Kurt and Sharon. So Sharon was one of the R25s candidates who's now here as faculty, and Kurt is another lifer. And Kurt, the whole week leading up to the pickleball tournament, was like, guys, I'm going to try really hard, really, really hard. We were like, Kurt, that's okay. You're allowed to try hard. And then the residents beat them pretty badly. This was me matching hairstyles with one of our neuro-ophthalmology faculty, Dr. Kornblath. And I think that's the last photo of our attendance. But it's just wonderful. Like, these are people who will teach you more than you ever imagined, will mentor you because they will also interact with you as a real person. And I think this is why, it's the residents, but it's also the faculty that make Michigan what it is.
And then at the end, we just have a conglomeration of photos that we felt like embody the spirit of our residency. This was at Kellen's baby shower, various children birthday parties. This was actually at Fortress Party, which would be a whole separate talk within itself. This was just last weekend for the first Michigan football game. I felt like that was cute. And then this was during our boot camp, one of our wellness events. Again,
that was just a Wednesday.
More wellness. This was at the ACTRIMS National MS Conference last year, where there were enough chairs, but we decided to all share one. Happy birthday. Oh, nobody look. Okay. And then I think this is the last one, mostly just highlighting that we do in fact hang out outside of work, and that's a really important, I feel like, part of our program, and why it's so kind of cohesive is that we like each other as people, and kind of choose to spend additional time together even outside of the hospital. And I feel like these kind of embody the spirit of our residency program. And then here's Gulliver, Kellen's dog, and then Stanley, one of our other PGY4, Kathleen, her dog, telling you that you can ask questions and we're around. I think in preparing for all of this, Kellen and I were just talking that kind of thinking about recruitment and thinking about, you know, sharing why we're so excited here, even kind of like, I don't know, is refreshing and re-energizing in terms of reminding us too of like how exciting and scary this process can be, but kind of doing our best to try and highlight the kind of things that help us and why we really love this program. And I still feel very thankful all the time as a PGY4 that as like a very mediocre candidate on paper, that I found my way here with Zach and a bunch of other people that have really inspired me every day. I will stop sharing the dogs. And
Thanks, you guys are the best. We've been busily trying to answer all the questions in the chat while everyone has been talking. And so thank you very much for those of you who have submitted. You know, we are a little bit over time, but I think what I'm going to try to do is maybe ask the faculty to just step out here just for a minute. Well, not, I mean, I guess forever actually. And maybe see if Cal and Alyssa want to just stick around in case you have any specific questions that you want to ask them, not in front of us. I just want to say thank you all so much. It truly is an honor to be able to do this every year and get a chance to meet so many wonderful, exciting future neurologists. And I really wish the best for all of you. And I hope to meet very many of you again in Zoom and hopefully in person after that. All right. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Alyssa and I will stick around for, you know,